Rolling, we're good. All right, so we just had a little audible, and this is a good life lesson. You know, things happen. You try to set things up a certain way, and you try to make sure you do the best possible job that you can, and making sure that things go according to plan. And sometimes they just don't. We were going to have Mike O'Hearn here today to talk to him about his Mike O'Hearnness over the years, and we were going to talk to Mona on the podcast, and then we're going to do some movie stuff with them. But Mike was coming back from Texas, and it just turns out he wasn't able to make it here, and so we audibled. And now hanging out with my bro.
And powerlifting, we call it bombing out.
We got
he bombed out on us.
Yeah, well, regardless of what he did, or regardless of our feelings towards it, it's just the way it is. And you just move on. You know, it's important not to get stuck on any one thing. He's been a friend for a long time.
Yeah, you just figure out what to do
Who really
next.
fucking cares? Tomorrow I'll talk to him, just say, hey, I'm disappointed you didn't let me know a little earlier. So I could have made other arrangements with our day. But who really cares?
Yeah, that's about it.
Anyway, you're making some gains over there with a Z. Capital gains.
I don't like labeling things with the Z.
You're doing a great job. Yeah. I know that
Thank you.
Jen Wiederstrom's against the Z. I remember we walked by Phil's one time, and she was like, I'll never go in that place. It has a Z.
And anything
But
Jen
then you're missing
Wiederstrom
out.
is against, I'm against.
But then you're missing out because Phil's is amazing.
I know Phil's is amazing. So you have to let the Z in every once in a while. But like 1-800 cars for kids and stuff like that, you're like, come on.
Carbs for kids.
Cars for kids. 1-800 cars. I think that's with a Z.
We got some
Anything
cold,
cheap is always
cold
like
brew
that.
coffees over here.
Trophy
that.
kids, they wanted to put a Z on the end, and we said no. And
So get that shit out of
Yeah,
here.
get that shit out of here. Trophy kids with a backward Z on the end, like that makes it.
So you made a lot of progress. You lost a lot of weight. You get in better shape. You and I are on a nutritional journey together, a fitness journey together. We are working on a movie where we're trying to find some more answers. But like, what has been your answer towards being able to make progress recently? Because for a little while, you were stuck.
And the cops are here as soon as you ask me.
There may be a lot of noises on this podcast. We have a house full of about 75 kids. So.
I thought, like, as soon as you asked me what the secret was, there steroid raid coming in. Now, for me,
I didn't ask about any secrets because I know that there are none. So
for me, the
biohack.
The real change has been really focusing and buckling down on the carnivore diet. For me, the carnivore diet seemed to be where I found success. And the more I go towards just red meat and water, the better I do. For me. And so I buckled down and went more towards that. And I also kicked up. So I work out twice a day, every day almost. I do cardio once a day, and I do weights usually once a day. And I just switch up the body parts. And so I know that sounds like a lot for a lot of people, but I just really love having a relationship with the gym again. You know, for a long time, I had a relationship with food, and that was something I'd visit 6 times a day. Now I'd rather visit the gym 6 times a day and the food once. So I eat like once a day usually, maybe twice, but usually
maybe a small snack in here or something like that.
The biggest key for me was like going down to eating. I would say once a day and a snack is how I normally eat. And then sometimes it's twice a day and then like a little snack. And by a little snack, I just mean like usually under 400 calories of something.
Well, you and I get people sending us stuff all the time, you know, protein bars and pecan butters, and it cracked open a cold brew right here, a caveman.
I did it right.
Shout out to our boy.
Yeah,
Tate Fletcher. It's amazing. This coffee's so good.
Coffee. CT
yeah, they're homies though. I think
they're brothers.
They're brothers. That sounds racist to say that they're brothers.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
But anyway, you know, I think a lot of times, you know, we're getting sent, you know, these different cool like keto things.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that plays into it a tiny bit.
This is amazing. A guy sent me a Killer Whey. He sent me keto ice cream, and it was really good. You know, so he's like, "Hey, I want you to try my keto ice cream." He sent 8 things of keto ice cream.
Oh, your
and
stomach.
They were gone in 2 days.
That's great.
And that's just part of my diet. And so I consumed all that, tested it out for everybody out there on Instagram that wants to know. And I'm like, hey, this stuff is pretty good. If you want to try it once in a while. Now, see, I haven't had it since. It's not that it's not good that I haven't had it. It doesn't really actually fit into my diet. So I didn't buy it again, but I did try it, and I showed everybody like, hey, I think this is legit. It didn't make me fat.
It was
didn't
only
make me
maybe
gain any weight.
only maybe a few weeks ago where you and I were talking on the phone, and we are talking about some fasting, and we are talking about like intermittent fasting. You were saying you have a hard time doing it. So the intermittent fasting, the longer intermittent fasting, is like a newer thing for you, right?
It's definitely a new thing, and I think that everything goes in waves and cycles, including the carnivore diet, the ketogenic diet. Everything in our lives goes in waves and cycles. So
My steroid abuse,
yeah, when I keep saying
waves and cycles,
carnivore
waves and
diet,
cycles.
carnivore diet, and I keep saying that over and over, it just means for right now. It really just means for right now. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm heralding.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like in 10 years, I might be in a different spot where I might need to use a different kind of diet to get out of the spot that I'm in then.
Right.
And so, while I know that this is effective for weight loss and for for my health right now, I don't know that it'll be that forever. I think it's hard to speak in absolutes, and I think that's something you and I talk about all the time, and something that really.
But we don't talk about it all the time because that sounds too absolute. We talk about it often.
We talk about it often. Yeah, and it is hard to not talk in absolutes. You say, "Oh, never do this and never do that,"
all the time.
Like, "Hey, never eat bread. You should never eat bread." And like, well,
Yeah.
if you're actually starving, then maybe you should eat bread. So I think.
Well,
that,
and then what if information is out there that shows that bread's really good?
There might be information that says like, "Hey, this guy ate a loaf of bread a day and he got jacked." And like,
There's
all of a sudden you go, "Whoa!"
some people that really believe that sourdough bread is good for you. Like there's like Ben Greenfield. He has sourdough bread, I think, every day. Some sort of special weird version of his own sourdough bread, but
yeah, and he does a lot of weird, like crazy, interesting things. And I think that in a way, that's the way you find out things. The only problem with biohacking is like the things that you disregard. So a lot of times, these biohacker guys, they keep showing you things like, "Hey, try this and try this and try this." And what I've found is like, as somebody out there experimenting for myself, and this isn't specific towards Ben at all. This is just in general. If you like come up with something, it's like wait a while before you tell people about it, because a lot of times you get too excited about something and then it like actually doesn't work, or maybe it was only working for
everybody
a little while.
should also always understand that whenever you're going towards one thing, you're going towards that one thing and you're leaving other things
going
behind
away from something else.
Sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. So even with fasting, there's a lot of pros that could happen with fasting, but there's also a lot of cons that can happen with fasting. I used a keto diet. I did the carnivore diet. I did a mix of things, and my muscles didn't feel like they were kind of like, it's hard to put in words, but they didn't feel like they were like with me for my workouts. They didn't feel like they were underneath me for my workouts, as opposed to having carbohydrates in the mix. And so some people that continually do keto diets may not understand mixing in some carbs can make them feel better. And I think what gets undersold a lot is how valuable the actual training is. We forget about how important the actual training session is and how important it is to be able to train hard. There's times where you go in the gym and because you didn't eat that much that day or the day before, maybe you did a lot of fasting, maybe you're trying a 24-hour fast or whatever. If you can't put into the gym what you need to put into the gym, then that's a huge negative too, unless it's just going to be for a short period of time.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. It's worthless to go to the gym and not get stuff done. You want to go in there and you want to attack it. You don't want to go in when you can't do anything. The other day I was going to go back and do another session of cardio. And then I just realized, like, I'm way too tired. That this is going to do nothing. What would be better is if I get to bed a little bit earlier and put a little bit more into my cardio in the morning. So some of the things I've been doing that are a little bit different are I used to just get up and go on a treadmill for an hour just to like warm up my body and get moving. But now I go into the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning at Gold's Venice, and you're already there. And you're on
with a boner.
Yeah, you're on the step mill, and I'm like, son of a bitch. If he's going to be on the step mill, I got to get on the step mill. So a lot of it is like motivated by
devastating.
A lot of it's motivated by just what you're doing. So if you ever want to get me to do something, all you got to do is just do it, and then I'll end up doing it. It's like stupid like that, Like if you're doing a bodybuilding show, that would be the only way to get me to do a bodybuilding show. It's like I see you do it, I might say, you know what? Let me try that out.
And we were just
I'm not yet. Though,
we were just cruising on the beach. We were running on the beach. When's the last time you ran?
I haven't run in literally run. I haven't run in. I tried to do it the other day, but besides that, I'd say it's been at least 20 years.
I'd say that, I figured the sand would be a good opportunity to introduce you to it. I think for somebody that hasn't run before, somebody that's listening to this podcast, and they want, like, a lot of times you want to do stuff, but you're kind of scared to even try it. Like, I've been wanting to do yoga for a long time, and I just haven't done it. I probably just need someone to be like, hey, you got to go with me or whatever. I probably just need some sort of
You need Joe Rogan, who's like a maniac about it. We keep
Right.
trying to talk Joe Rogan into lifting, but all he needs to do is invite us to a yoga class, and we'll back out just as easy as he backs out of our
Yeah,
lifting.
we'll put on a pair of Lululemon pants and we'll work it out, right? But anyway, as I was saying, like, getting people to run. Running can be intimidating, it can be hard. Anyone who's big, it's going to have too much impact on you. But if you run a hill, the impact's a lot less. You move a lot slower. The intensity is greater, but the rate at which you move is a lot less. So running on a hill is fucking great. And also running in sand can be really beneficial. It can be great rather than just running on regular concrete, like
People
a
need
trail
to
run or something.
start thinking about who they really are when they say the words "I can't." That's a big problem. That was a huge problem that I had for so long. I would just say, "I can't," and as soon as you say "I can't," you just set you like, "What are you, a loser?" That's what you feel about yourself, that you can't do anything. Like, so you gotta take a step back from "I can't" and start thinking about what you can do. And maybe you can't do something. There are some things people can't do, but when you can't do something, what's the alternative? And that's what I really got from you. And that's what I got from our guest today, who's not here. Just don't say that you can't, because if you say that you can't, you're already setting yourself up from the very beginning for failure. When I said I can't squat, you said, but you can safety bar squat. I said, well, yeah, probably. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I can because I never tried it. Well, you're like, try it. So now I'm safety bar squatting with 405.
Well,
That's
yeah, you were
stupid to
saying
not
that.
do it.
Well, you're saying that you can't squat because your shoulder, and I was like, well, there's other options. It doesn't
Sure.
have to be a regular squat bar.
It's still that question that you asked me when you said,
Yeah, the
are you
incline
going?
bench.
Are you going next on the incline bench?
Yeah, you in?
And I said I can't, and then you said
You
that's
said
not what I asked.
I can't do that weight.
I can't do that weight. He said that's not what I asked you.
Yep.
And I just stopped it right there and just said that's it.
And then we got you moving.
Those are moments, though, that I think people need to have more of. You need to have more life-changing moments where somebody says something to you and you stop and you say, that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's challenging my manhood. That's challenging my pride. When I say, like, I can't do something and I just, like, I'm basically putting myself in a category of worthlessness when I say I can't. And we got to stop looking at things that way,
I mean, with the exception of it, like, just 100% not being in your best interest to try something, because it could be, like, not safe for you for the moment, because you might not be able to do it, like a 40-inch box jump or something out of nowhere, right? Like, it might not be smart to try it. But I think a really important thing that I've learned is just to let go of who you were. Who cares? Because who you are is a made up thing anyway. It's made up by your own interpretation of how people think, how you think that people think that you are. So it's a totally made up thing that you made up in your head. Oh, people think I'm just big and dumb. Like, no, they actually don't. They don't. And you want to know why? Because they don't care.
Yeah.
People don't care. People care about themselves. They care about their families. They care about their kids. They care about their wife. They care about their job. They ain't got time to think about your bullshit. Everybody just thinks all I can ever do is be a documentary filmmaker.
The word,
it's like, no one thinks that. No one even cares.
The word everybody, all it is just a culmination of all these ideas that you have in your own head.
Right.
And you just call it everybody or them or they. They don't want you to know about this, bro. They don't want you to know. And it's like, there isn't a big people conspiring against anything. Like, even with Kratom, they're like, oh, they don't want you to know about it. It's like, that's not really it. It's like people are just unaware, right? Really, we haven't educated the world enough on it. That's really the scoop. There isn't any meeting behind the scenes.
It took them 5 seconds. They're like, we don't know much about it. Okay, it's
There's
banned.
no meeting on Mark Bell where everybody's sitting around going,
Yeah.
Mark Bell is big and fat and stupid. Like, what an idiot. And then they're all agreeing, right? Yeah, he is, right? And then, there is no. So when you're right, when they say everybody thinks I'm just this, or they said I couldn't do it, is my favorite. When people,
you hear every time a team wins the NBA championship,
here's
or the
all
NFL,
people that said we'd never
they win
do
a
it.
Super Bowl, and it's like, yeah, we banded together, and no one thought we could do it. Well, who are these people that didn't think you can do it? You're part of this professional league.
Look, the Cleveland Browns have fans right now
Yeah.
that are like, bro, they're going to the Super Bowl this year.
They're going to do it.
So even the people on the Cleveland Browns.
That's a bad example.
No. There are you'll find some dude in Cleveland who's drunk off his ass right now, who was like screaming at somebody, going, "They're going to win the Super Bowl this year."
Remember when they had Jim Brown? They were great.
So it can't be everybody. It can't be everybody, right? There's got to be like one or two people that say you can. So I just think negativity is not an option, and that's something that we actually learned from O'Hearn, even though he's not here.
Yeah.
But we learned that negativity is not something that should ever enter our zone,
bloodstream. When you were running, what was actually hurting? Because you said that it hurt to run.
Just my hips in the hip capsule, but
what does that feel? Is there a way to describe that? Or does it just not make any sense to your average
your
person
knee ever
doesn't
hurt?
have fake
Like
hip?
your knee when you land on your knee and it feels like there's no shock absorber there.
Yeah.
There's no shock.
You go up the stairs and there's like, it feels like someone's jamming a fork into your knee.
It just hurts a little bit. So
on every step.
When I'm jogging, each step hurts. But here's what we did to the hip capsule in the past 2 days. We squatted. I did 315 for 3 sets of 10 on a box squat. And that's pretty heavy. And then we deadlifted 500 pounds yesterday.
Yeah.
Trap bar deadlift. But
then you did regular squats and you didn't think you could really do those either.
We did regular squats after we trap bar deadlifted because you made me. And then we did, what do you call it? Leg extension. So yeah, if my knees and my hips kind of feel beat up today, then it's because of that. But one of the things that's been amazing for all around has been the Kratom, the CBD oil, and the carnivore diet, and those things, and also Mariva curcumin, it's called. People take curcumin all the time, and a lot of it doesn't actually ever get absorbed. But there's a kind called Mariva curcumin, and that, along with CBD and Kratom, I found to be just an excellent way.
Any idea what curcumin does?
Lowers inflammation, really, really well across the board.
They're starting to say now, we can start to bring Daniel Orrego in on this.
Get in here, Daniel.
Things will get a little technical. Yeah, hop in on
our
the
buddy
seat.
Daniel's here, and Daniel used to work.
He's going Seinfeld on us with the white shoes. Look at that.
He used to work for Quest Nutrition, and he's super smart. He's been on the podcast before.
Yeah,
Daniel.
All
right, my man.
Oh, this guy's
give me a big hug
in the middle of the podcast.
Yeah, it's weird timing.
Good things, buddy. Good to see you, man.
Thank you so much.
for everything, buddy.
That was great. That was a good weekend, man. Good week or whatever it was.
Hey, I'm just gonna leave too right now, so I gotta go.
Yeah, way to do your job, Andrew.
Hey, at least
hey,
if
way
you're
to put your family first over top of this job.
At least if you're gonna leave, can you at least send me those pictures of my calves?
Yeah, I can.
Please.
Your cows.
Absolutely.
They turned into cows.
Like, no, like now. I need them now. Now, when you get to the airport,
It's so important that he posts them on social media.
because of social media,
That's right.
Andrew, you're awesome. It was great to see you down here. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate you.
I'll see you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for working out with us too. That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hashtag me. Now wait, that is confusing. Me 3. Can we start off with that real quick?
Well, that stems from what was our cardio session this morning, where we were commiserating about the some of the challenges with the Me Too movement.
Right.
It's very controversial, and we said, hey, the idea is that it should be even more inclusive than it is now. Hashtag Me 3.
Yeah.
Add yourself in.
Yeah, we're adding ourselves in.
Well, yesterday,
to be
we
part
had
of the solution.
we had a really good conversation with Victoria. We were over at
Yes.
Bulletproof. What's her last name?
Field, Victoria Field.
We had a good conversation with Victoria Field, and she is a researcher for the Keto Pet Project, right?
Yep.
Epigenix, right? Is that what it's called?
Epigenix, and she also helped Quest Nutrition start a keto meal prep company they did a while back. They had dissolved that, but anyway, she's a strong woman, and it's clear that she's fit. She works out, and she was
remember,
kind of.
she's also an IFBB pro. That's what a lot of people don't.
That's
know
awesome.
history.
Yeah,
and
she's
she
a
had
badass.
she had a very, very successful short,
Yeah.
but in that period of time, successful. Pro
She
career.
was talking a little bit about the Me Too movement and some of that stuff, and she was like, "Yeah, just be strong. Just lead. Just do. You don't have to be so wordy. We're so wordy with it." She was kind of.
She's an
agreement.
awesome example of somebody who's leading a bunch of women out of things like cancer.
Right.
And she's helping a lot of people. To
Well, in
change
health
their
and
lives
fitness,
things
there's
like
not enough of a strong voice from women, I feel like, and it's great that somebody like her. I'm excited that you guys are going to interview her for the movie. We'll get her in there as well because we do need
There's
some
other people like we
women
ran into
voices.
Jen Wiederstrom
Yeah.
yesterday, and she's awesome. Another person that's always positive every time you see her, always encouraging girls to get out there and do it and go train. And we definitely like need more
It's
of
got to
this.
be easy to be positive when you're hot, right? Right? I mean,
There are
She has
advantages.
problems too. She has
yeah,
problems
that's
too.
true.
You know?
That's true.
It's like we all do.
Yeah, but yeah, she was she's always been super excited about fitness, and she's always brought a lot of enthusiasm to it. You know, she's always like really fired up and excited, and part of that is part of the way that she got on. You know, Biggest Loser, being a coach.
She had the quote of the year yesterday, and it perplexed Daniel so much. She said, "Come on, let's take a picture because you know social media." Mm-hmm. And Daniel was
that
like,
was a
"What does that
great
even
moment.
mean?"
Yeah, that was a great moment because it seemed sort of self-evident that by all means we should have this photo. Why? Well, because social media.
Yeah,
That's the new hashtag, right?
like,
because social media.
It's rare for anybody to be that upfront about it,
right.
because you know social media. You know,
Well, the transparency was so charming.
Yeah.
You know,
it was
like
cute.
almost like, hey, let's make sure that we video this so I can become famous.
right?
Because that is sort of what you're doing. You want to show what you did for that day. Like here's these exercises, and not only did I do these exercises, but Mike O'Hearn's in the photo with me. Like this should really help me be famous.
Well, it's like people like
get a picture,
People
you know,
will say, "I
social
don't
media.
want to be famous or anything," but they have a camera crew following them around.
Right.
But you know, that's not my goal. Is not to be famous, but
That's
I have a
not the
camera crew
main
following
thing.
around.
Yeah.
I always use that excuse. I'm like, I never wanted to be famous or anything, but yeah, I made a movie. I put myself in it. That's the cheapest.
Anyway, we were talking about inflammation,
Curcumin.
and there's even more evidence now mounting as we speak, as we do this podcast. There's more and more information coming out that the more you can, I guess, fend off or yield inflammation, it can even help with weight loss. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that's not an unfair statement. In fact, what's so interesting about inflammation is how the what I would call the cycle or interval of inflammation is managed. And what I mean by that is that it's not a one-way street. So for example, like this morning, all of us caused quite a bit of inflammation in our own bodies as a result of doing heavy, very rigorous resistance training. Well, provided that we attend to that with appropriate foods, supplementation, very importantly, rest, that interval of inflammation can be managed in a way that's very, very advantageous. Why? Because we're inducing adaptive response. It's when inflammation is left unchecked that, okay, then you can run into problems, you can, impute disease processes or just challenge overall health by that.
So you could be training really hard, but you could really be shooting yourself in the foot, because if you're not recovering from these workouts,
Exactly.
And recovery is a weird thing to talk about, because some people might say like, "Oh, I feel okay," but are you drinking? Are you not sleeping? Are you just kind of behind in general? Like if you're behind already, you're 25 or 30% body fat, you're going to have to figure out a way to make some changes to get momentum to even start heading in the right direction.
Yeah. And there's some interesting nuances to the whole thing. So for example, like a lot of people are aware that the use of omega-3 fatty acids can, help to manage inflammatory response. But here's where things get a little bit curious. So, and they've looked at this in rats. So if you have two cohorts of rats, right, that are both receiving training on a wheel.
Cohorts,
or groups, I should say. Two groups of rats, right? So you have a group of
rats
rats
are friends
that receive omega-3s, and you have a group of rats that do not. Well, the group of rats that receive omega-3s do recover faster, but over a long enough time horizon, they are not as strong as the group of rats that do not, which tells you something important about managing inflammation. Is if you do it too much, you may actually be reducing or tamping down adaptive response. So it's not a one-way street. It's not
Almost
all
a little
one thing
bit,
or all the other.
Almost
right?
a little bit like that ice pack theory. If you
Yes,
use the ice
yeah.
pack after every training session for your knees, maybe it's not the greatest thing. But if your knees are actually swollen and you fell and you hit a curb or something,
Right.
your knee's all jacked up, by all means chuck some ice in there. But if you're doing it all the time, maybe it's starting to have a negative effect.
Yeah, and it's probably true. The same thing, about supplementation is probably true. Is the same thing is true about any given nutritional program, which is you may not do it in perpetuity. You may do it for a period of time for a certain effect, and then that may evolve into something else as your goals and aspirations change.
Is there proof that is there proof that a ketogenic diet is better for inflammation than, like, let's say, if it fits your macros, or a diet that is, I guess, following a caloric maintenance or restriction?
Well, this goes back a little bit to what we talked about with Peter Attia the other day, right? Where he was talking about the two groups of rhesus monkeys, the one in Wisconsin and the other in the East Coast.
Yeah, we got excited about peanut butter cups.
Yeah, right, because of the rhesus monkey. And it showed that in contextual to one group, they didn't do as well with caloric restriction. But it also depended on what the baseline food substrate was. So if the baseline food substrate was terrible, then caloric restriction really helped. But if it was pretty good food, then it didn't really give them that much of an advantage. And I think the same thing is true here, which is ketogenic diet can be very powerful in controlling inflammation. But in comparison to if it fits your macros, well, it depends on what are the macros.
But
right?
you could also
the macros could be a ketogenic diet. They could be high protein. They could be higher carb. It depends on what
for example,
spectrum is of
you could have a
macronutrient
very
distribution.
inflammatory ketogenic diet. You could be eating like something like canola oil or something that's like inflammatory on a ketogenic diet. So you still have to avoid dairy. Can be very inflammation causing to certain people and cause leaky gut in some people, and certain kinds of dairy or milk or whatever.
We used to do kind of a haphazard keto. We would go to like Denny's and load up.
Chicken wings is bullshit keto. And we used to do stuff
buffalo
like that.
wings
And we used to
things
tell
like that.
people, like, don't worry, there's no carbs in it. And like I was guilty of that.
There's
Dip it in
actually
ranch.
what you're talking about. There's scientific precedence for it.
Well, they did studies.
Yeah, and one of the guys that really brought this to my attention was Dr. Laszlo Boros, who's a pediatric oncologist at
Boros,
UCLA.
I remember you brought him.
Yeah, and he was one of the first guys to start to unpack some of these studies that ketogenic diet doesn't work. And what he would do is he would go back and look at the methodology for what they were feeding the rats, and what he showed was that it was a high fat diet, low carb, low protein, but they were feeding trans fats. And trans fats are not ketogenic. So the choices that you make actually do become very, very important.
Even if they are ketogenic, though, like even if it was canola oil, that can still cause inflammation in the body, right? So, like, let's make sure that when we're talking about a ketogenic diet, it needs to be a ketogenic diet with all the things that we discussed it enough for people to know, but like no vegetable or seed oils, no sugar. Those things are definitely going to be inflammatory, even if you're on a ketogenic diet. So it'll lower inflammation if you stay away from all the right inflammatory foods.
And the great news is with what you guys are talking about here is these are knowable phenomena. So you can measure, you can go, to any doctor, your doctor here locally. People can go to Dr. Rand, whoever they want to go to, and they can measure interleukin-6. They can measure homocysteine. They can measure high sensitivity C-reactive protein. They can measure galactin-3, and they can know what these inflammatory markers are telling them. So it's not as if you have to be out of the loop in terms of what your response is to any given nutritional and supplementation protocol. You can just go measure your own blood and find out. And that's the beauty of these things is you can sort of produce that feedback loop and say, hey, I'm looking at my blood numbers. Inflammation, at least according to these panels, is low or medium or high, and you can make adjustments accordingly.
Any ideas as to any theories on why a carnivore style diet works? When we asked Peter Attia about it, he was like, I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There's
It's
a couple other people that kind of
some of the top people in the world are like, kind of like, I don't really get it.
DeLisle, right? Like,
Yeah.
he kind of said the same thing.
They're kind of like, I don't really get it.
So a good point of departure for thinking about this is, and this was something that I have to give our colleague Ron Penna credit for, because he always presents this as sort
He's
of a
the best.
thought experiment. He says, look, if you were locked on a ship at sea for a year, right, or perhaps for 2 years, and you could only select one food with which to survive for that extended period of time, what would you select, and would you make it, right? And the answer, sort of fast forward to the punchline, the only food that you could select that would allow you to survive is meat, right? Some sort of beef. You might be able to scrape through with eggs, possibly. possibly. But any other food choice, you wouldn't make it because you would run into micronutrient deficiency and you'd run into challenge. Now, is that a perfect thought experiment? No. But what it does
I
is
think it is.
Right. But what it does is it gives you occasion to really put in stark relief what is the most important input nutritionally that we have in a survival situation. Right. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's probably not, most people wouldn't select meat as the first go-to.
Ketogenic diet is survival mode.
Yeah,
diet,
to a degree,
right?
it's a survival mode diet. And what it really teaches you is that when it comes to conferring health benefit, it's a lot of times is what you don't do. Right. So if you're not
talked about
eating
that,
high
yeah.
carbohydrates, right, just by not incurring that insult, boy, oh boy, you buy back so much health benefit. So there's nothing magical about eating meat per se. It's more so when you do that diet, what are you not doing?
You avoid
right?
Chips
I'm
Ahoy.
I'm
you
not
notice
eating
what
the Twizzlers and the Hot Pockets.
Do you
and
notice
the
what he
delicious Chips
technically
Ahoy that you
called it?
mentioned? You know,
What he technically called eating carbs, he technically called it an insult.
Yeah.
And that's what people call it, an insult. You're insulting your body.
You're insulting metabolism to a degree, right?
crazy.
When you have an excess, right?
it's funny, though.
There's lots of reasons to eat carbs, like not the least of which
absolutely,
is you're doing a bodybuilding show. Man, you're gonna get a lot of benefit from that.
Yeah, get glycogen in
Yeah,
the muscle and your
exactly.
liver, load up, recover.
What are some of so like on a ketogenic diet, typically, it might be about 1 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat. Usually the fat is even a little bit higher and the protein's even a little bit lower. What's the disadvantage of somebody, riding out a ketogenic diet for kind of a long period of time and not moving or shifting in and out of it at all?
So using Dr. Attia as an example, you may recall when he was here the other day, he mentioned, hey, there was a period of time for 3 years, right? 1,000 days.
Mhm.
This guy was in
ketosis.
nutritional ketosis, right? So what happened to him? Well, lots of good things happened to him. Not too many bad things happened to him, other than that for a period of 3 years, he didn't eat delicious pizza and delicious
Right.
Chips Ahoy. That you might say, hey, that was actually a bad thing. You didn't have that in your life. But physiologically, he didn't move backwards doing that. And it tells you something very important, which is, hey, look, if you or I never ate another carb in our lives, no great harm would come to us.
Right.
Right. Now, our lives might be poorer socially
Right.
as a
Come on,
result
man.
of
Eat some food.
right, of
Have
not
some
being
ice
able to
cream.
have the fantastic Twizzlers and Hot Pockets. But we wouldn't move backwards physiologically. Now, we may not be able to move forwards with performance in every way that we might want to. Right? I mean, Peter's not going to step on a bodybuilding stage anytime soon, right? You are. Carbohydrates are a part of that landscape. So, when you start thinking, I mean, we've talked about this before. I love to think of carbohydrates as a supplement,
Yeah.
right? Not a prerequisite for physiological health, but a supplement for performance. I think all of a sudden
It's
now,
an interesting way to look at it
Yeah.
because you don't need them, right?
Yeah.
You don't need them, but like you could utilize them all the time
Yeah.
for different things.
There's lots of advantages to having them, but they are not a prerequisite, A, for survivorship or B, for long-term health.
Yeah.
Can you be on a ketogenic diet and can you mix in a little bit of carbs? You were mentioning for yourself you have a little bit of like oatmeal before you hit the gym. Can people have a little pre and post workout carbohydrates to lift them up a little bit, to give them a little extra in the gym, but still be kind of in
Absolutely.
ketosis? I guess?
Absolutely. I mean, and probably the sort of the version of that really threads the needle is the use of substrates like cluster dextrin. In other words, highly branched carbohydrates that induce no glycemic
So some of
response.
these carb powders.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Where would somebody get something like that? What is it in? What is that?
Well, you can buy it.
Say it again.
they're-
Cluster dextrin?
Cluster dextrin, yeah.
Like a cluster?
Like a cluster of dextrins.
Yeah.
Like cluster
Literally,
flop.
that's what it
Hanny's company and some other companies make carbohydrates like that. And that's
Yeah.
what I take in my post-workout
Yeah.
supplementation.
It's the stuff like the resistance starches, basically. Those
effectively,
kind of things.
yeah. And it was
You
really.
can makes one, right?
Yeah,
Jeff Volek's company.
I think also like
Carbolin is one.
yeah, I
of
think
them, and,
Gaspari makes
Gaspari Nutrition
makes one.
Yeah.
And basically, what those products were actually originally developed for kids with GLUT1 deficiency, so that they would be able to extend the window of time without having to refeed. But then somebody clever sort of figured out, like, oh, there might be a performance benefit
Some
to this.
meathead thinks about it in anabolic window terms.
Right. And also, if you are eating other carbs, then you can take that carb in without inducing a glycemic response or an insulin response. And then you can save that for other carbs. Or if you're saying, hey, I want to train, but I want to have the performance benefit of carbs without dismantling my state of nutritional ketosis, this is how I can thread the needle.
So post-workout, for a lot of the workouts I've been doing over the last like 20 years, I've always had a post-workout shake. Even through doing a ketogenic diet, I would do 2 scoops of either like a whey protein isolate or a hydrolyzed whey right after the workout. That's like kind of always been there. Now, sometimes I add carbs in depending on what I'm doing. Now I'm doing bodybuilding stuff, so there's it's like 25 grams of carbs, which is not a lot, but there's a scoop in there, right? When you're on a ketogenic diet and you lift, I'd imagine you probably produce a lot of the same hormones and things are going on in your body as if you weren't on a ketogenic diet. Talk a little bit about what that post-workout window looks like, and does it make sense for somebody that's on a keto diet to have straight up protein post-workout? Because isn't there somewhat of an insulin response from getting
there is. So like if you looked at like insulin response curves for fat, it's flat. For protein, you get a little bit of a bell shape, and then for high glycemic carbs, you get this sort of peak, right? So if you compare those 3 macronutrients, and then fiber sort of like fat. If you take in just a pure fiber, it's pretty flat response. So it really depends on what people's goals are. So for example, like if you look at, say, our colleague Dom D'Agostino, right? He will stay in ketosis for pretty extended periods of time.
And still outlift you.
And still outlift me, right? And I've personally trained with him and watched him lift in a fasted state. Man, it's mightily impressive to watch him.
He'll kill you.
Yeah, move some weight around. Now, his goals are different in the sense that he's not trying to put on muscle, but he understands that when you're calorically restricted and eating ketogenically, training helps you to maintain the musculature that you have. So if that's the goal set, then staying in ketosis makes a lot of sense while you're doing resistance training. Now, if you're trying to put on more muscle, then staying in ketosis doesn't make a lot of sense unless your goal set is very modest. And what I mean by that is Dr. Jacob Wilson and Dr. Ryan Lowry have probably done the best work looking at resistance-trained athletes who are in a state of ketosis, who are able to still put on a little bit of muscle. So there are thresholds to what you can achieve. Now, obviously, the ketogenic ratios that those athletes are using are going to be a little lower to allow for more protein so that they can put on a little bit of muscle, but obviously they're not going to have the same response as somebody eating very high protein with also a good amount of carbs. There's just going to be a different range of response. So it really depends on, what's the goal set? What am I trying to achieve? What's
going on with your insulin after you exercise? Like, why is that a post-workout? They say your post-workout window of like food or carbohydrates or whatever.
Well, also just to say, I think the post-workout window is that myth's kind of been shattered, hasn't it?
To a degree. I mean, it's sort of like fasted cardio versus fed cardio.
Not in terms of bodybuilding. I mean, it's still alive and well. Like bodybuilders they're not going to get done with a workout and not have that shake.
That's exactly right. And there is and you said it perfectly.
They're not going to take their chances, right? Like, why take a chance?
You said it perfectly. There's lots of things that science proves. It really has nothing to do with how athletes perform.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like like a good example of that is like fasted cardio versus fed cardio. There's been a lot of great scientific studies that basically come to the conclusion like, not much of a difference.
Yeah.
But if you talk to, say, for instance, your coach, Mr. Rambat, he said, no. I don't care what that science says.
Do it.
Here's what you're doing, and here's why, and here's the context within which that is happening, and here's my experience with thousands of athletes that informs me that this is the way to do it.
He's like, you'll just lose fat faster.
The smarter
and
reason.
He's right in the same way that the science is right. In other words, he's right for what he's doing.
The smarter reason is that you wake up in the morning, you're already fasted, and then you're going to induce exercise in an already fasted body.
There's nothing
and
blocking
you're already
you.
in ketosis for the most part. Most of us that we're talking about here, you're already in ketosis, so you're already burning fat when you wake up. why not exercise while you're doing that and burn more fat? To me, the science saying that it doesn't work doesn't make any sense. Like even if it doesn't work, I'm still going to do it because on paper it makes sense to me.
Right.
Like it makes the most sense to me. Also, even though I said, they busted that myth, it makes more sense to me to work out and you're starving afterwards. You go eat.
Right.
You just go down a ton of food. Like that's what we've always done, and it's always been effective, and it's been effective for everybody. So like, why stop doing that because a scientist said, you don't need to do that.
Well, and here's the other thing that's interesting, right? Don't be surprised that with certain athletes, Hani breaks his own rule. Why?
yeah.
Because he knows that for that athlete, he needs to make certain adjustments because they're a unique specimen.
Maybe Phil Heath wakes
Right?
up and he's starving in the morning or something.
Yeah, and so
we
when
don't know.
when it comes to performance, like you definitely have to refer to the science because that gives you an understanding of what's been done according to a certain standard of rigor. But you may end up electively throwing that out for this athlete or this situation or this particular circumstance. And
Yeah,
time.
for me, I like my situation here. I have to just get the gym done in one shot.
Right.
And so you're like, hey man, you got to eat because you're with me for hours and you don't see me eat. All I have is like liquid, right? But I have aminos while we're training, and I have a post-workout drink, and I usually have food about an hour after. The only reason I'm doing that is that's just because that's the way it has to be for now.
That's the situation that you're in.
Precisely.
It's the situation I'm in. So it might not be the most ideal. Like we could all sit here and probably be like, yeah, if you waited about 2.5 hours and you got back to the gym, you'd probably have like some more vigor and be able to attack that cardio a little bit more or that second workout a little bit harder. When I get back to Sacramento, I'll probably be able to, do some of that again.
You'll be able to control time better, distance better, timing better.
Because now it's an hour of cardio, it's an hour of posing, and it's an hour and a half of lifting.
And it takes about a half an hour to get back and forth from the gym here.
And it takes about an extra 30, 40 minutes too of just kind of BS. Like you can't be in the gym.
Especially
you
Gold's
can't be in the
Venice.
gym and be an asshole.
Right.
But especially Gold's Venice. Like you go to Gold's Venice and so many people know me, they just even want to meet you. So like, and if you if you didn't stop and talk to all those people, they'd be disappointed.
Well,
so
because
it's just what we do.
Hashtag because social media.
Yeah, that's just what we. It's
for
just
no
what
other
we
reason.
do anyway. We just always go in.
And also
speed stack meet and greet.
Right.
You walk around the gym, you drink a speed stack.
Also, our boy Bruce. Bruce is like, you got to be social. Come on. He's like, let's go over.
Yeah, Bruce is a
Let's go
prime
talk.
example of that. He runs around with
great.
Quest giving out bars to everybody, and it's like he's just
Look at that
everybody
guy's
knows him.
Look at that guy's life though. I mean, he's crushing it. Like he's having so much fun.
Look
he's got
how
so much
fun you can have being nice to people, right?
Exactly. Well, and that's why
He
I
always
call
has
him
a big-ass smile.
I call him Mr. Handshake, the mayor of Quest. Why? Because he really is in many respects. He's not just the face, but he's
Chris is the mayor of Golds.
right.
Yeah.
Chris is the mayor of Golds.
I'm up for re-election, by the way.
Right. Now,
But now I got to battle the governor.
you mentioned something earlier about the hour of posing, and we've talked a lot about it. All three of us have talked a lot about it. That is something that is so uniquely ascribed to bodybuilding, and it's one of the parts of bodybuilding that a lot of people don't get exposure to because they don't compete on stage in a sanctioned competitive ecosystem where the posing is how the judges evaluate your physique by itself and in comparison to
Posing
others.
can also stimulate muscle growth, though, right?
It can, and that's what I wanted to get your take on. You've had an interesting experience up to this point. You've worked with Charles Glass. You've worked with Big Will Harris, and started to get really into the posing.
Yeah.
What's changed for you now that you've had exposure to that?
Well, it's becoming more fun.
Okay.
Even today. First of all, it's very difficult, as you're mentioning. It's very hard, and I'm only doing like classic physique poses, so I can only imagine when you get into bodybuilding and you got more. There's a lot more poses that go on, and with traditional bodybuilding, there's a lot more like just flexing that goes on. It's even though I'm still flexing, it's not as intense as when you see the pros going head to head, and they're like, at the end of the competition, they're just going as hard as they can. That looks insanely difficult. Each guy's got their own little spin, and each guy gave me a little tidbit of information. But the amazing thing is so many people at Gold's Gym have been so positive about it. There's probably been 5 or 6 different bodybuilding people I can think of that I've admired for a long time, or even just people that have good physiques in there that have been so excited and so positive that I'm doing it. So that has
Yeah.
been really cool. Even Tito Raymond
That's
has
right,
competed
yeah.
over 60 times on stage. He's put his ass on the line many, many times. His brother, couldn't be any more successful. His
Yeah.
brother kills it. And Tito's just showing me a small thing to do with the bicep. He's like, everybody wants to try to, curl their wrist downward. He's like, don't curl the wrist downward, curl it more back, and your bicep will come up. Well, here I was thinking like, both my biceps kind of look like a flat tire because I've torn both of them. Well, now when I flex them, there's actually some peak there, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
like just through learning some of these things, you can really make a big difference. So, and then what Will showed me, rather than like the side chest pose or some of the posing I was doing, rather than just thinking about these strict angles, I'm going to be head on, I'm going to be this way, I'm going to be this way. He's like, no. He's like, point this way and try it this way. And I did, and I was like, wow, all right, well, I got a hamstring now. I
Right.
got some different muscles popping out that I didn't, that I wasn't aware of. So it's cool, and I feel more confident.
Yeah.
At first
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never really like posed in the mirror before. Like I don't
Yeah.
really sit there and flex in front of the mirror.
Yeah, right.
I don't. No, I mean,
Ask Andy.
Yeah, it sounds.
Andy, where are you?
Obviously, just like anybody else,
Yeah.
I always check myself out in the mirror, right?
Oh, okay.
Any reflection we got. I mean, maybe
in the
maybe I
car
s-
in the car door when you
yeah,
walk by the window.
maybe I'm in the gym and I see the tricep on a tricep push down. Like, of course, I mean, those
Every
are
time
very
I'm in a
common
store,
things.
I throw a tricep down when
Yeah.
you walk past them.
Yeah, those are very common things, but
Yeah.
I've
Half
never
shot.
like sat there and really tried to work on it. So it's been a
have.
huge confidence boost. It's been feeling good, and it also I could feel it kind of almost drying my skin out as I was flexing and stuff.
Well, and that's I think one of the sort of the hidden secrets of posing is a lot of times when people want to make improvements in their physique, they don't realize how much of a contributor posing is to that effect. Even within an hour of posing, you can literally do a before and after photo and see dramatic change in how your physique presents because of the water you're pushing out and the fact that you're actually bringing blood into the muscles.
Yeah.
So that's like an instant transformation almost, and that's to me what I find.
What was
so
amazing
fascinating
is
about it.
people can watch this on Mark's YouTube channel too. There's a video that we did with Charles Glass
right on.
in the posing
Yeah.
room. And he's like, get over here, Chris, get over here. And he like calls me over because he's like, look what happens when he just sits down on that leg. And all he
Yep.
did was like sit back on his calf a little bit and his hamstring just popped right out. And Charles was like, see that? Like now you can see it.
Yeah.
It was just one little move, one little flinch, and
Yeah.
then boom, and all of a sudden it popped out.
The
And that's
attention,
kind of amazing
the
to see how-
attention of like all the detail that you need to
Yeah.
kind of go over. We were working on calves today. I haven't done that in years. I did some ab work today. I haven't done that in years. There's a lot of things that I just haven't really messed with before, and even just the tanning.
Yeah.
You
The
just
tanning is a discipline.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot about all this. Like when you talk about like laying out in the sun for a few minutes, I come back and every vein is
Yes.
popping everywhere, all through my stomach, all through my chest. It looks crazy.
Well, that heat, just very slightly evaporates water under the skin,
Yeah.
so that skin then sits down on the fascia more, and then you
What
see
do you
more
do for
vasculature.
tanning? You're just because you're here in Malibu, just going outside, literally, or do you go
Yeah,
to a tanning
just-
bed?
No, just laying out there. It's it's kind of hard to lay face down as much, and so getting
Yeah.
the hamstrings in the back. It all sounds so weird, but it's all a discipline of things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do them, and it's over and over and over and over and over again.
Overall, would you say
Continuously.
that your experience has been hard? Or do you like it?
It's continuous.
Yeah.
It's a full court press. But I feel like I'm winning. I feel like I'm scoring. Like I'm still able to
Do you
dribble the
think it
ball
would
and make
feel
some
different
shots.
if you had like a 9
But
to
it's
5?
fucking hard.
If you had like a 9 to 5 job, do you think it'd be different for like some of those guys that are doing that kind of stuff?
I think sometimes the more structure, maybe the better. And so I certainly don't think that it's necessarily easier this way. What is easier for me is just the fact that I have finances, and that
you
helps
can
a lot.
You can operate
I
because
mean,
it's
I can
expensive.
buy a $8 or $9 or $10, whatever the hell it is, prepped meal from or $12, I think it was,
Yeah.
from the gym, and not really worry
And
about
that's-
it. Go to
yeah.
Bulletproof and grab something. I can Uber around. Like, I just don't have any restriction when it comes to that, and so that feels really good.
Yeah.
I could pick up salmon from Whole Foods, or I have.
What
And
I
for
do
some people, they don't have those options.
What I do like about what I'm doing with the carnivore diet is like a lot of people can't afford stuff, so you just put them on eggs and ground beef, and they can make it. So
You know what though? You're going to
it
eat
stays
less
cheap.
though. That's the message
Yeah.
too. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you fat bastard, you're going to eat a lot less.
Yeah, you just can't
That'll
eat a lot
cost
of that
you.
stuff.
That'll cost you less.
Because, like you said, it's what you're
Yeah.
not eating, and what you're not
Oh, it's
eating
huge.
costs
Yeah.
$5 per like ounce. You know what I mean? Like think
Yeah.
about how much a Dorito
the
actually
margins
costs per ounce and stuff like that.
that
It's crazy.
company's making more money on that.
Yeah.
The margin is
Yeah,
different.
they're shipping
Yeah.
it cheaper. They're everything.
Like the steaks
They're just giving you
are
cheaper
obviously
shit.
marked up just like everything else.
Just like you said, they don't celebrate when people come back with a bag of vegetables. They celebrate when the hunters come back with a big thing of meat. That's when people
Right.
get
hey, you
fired
got
up.
berries.
Yeah, they're not. Woo! Yeah, here comes some granola.
Well, you bring up a great point, which is, a lot of people say, "Oh, I would maybe change my nutritional program, but there are financial limitations." But what you guys are talking about actually addresses that head on, because while you have the ability to incur convenience in terms of how you buy food, which is great, ideally you have that. Even if that's not the case, if you plan how you buy your meats, if you plan how you buy your rice and your vegetables, man, your cost per serving can go down dramatically.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're consistent about eating that way and you don't eat out and you don't buy packaged foods, which you're absolutely right. There's a very different cost structure and margin structure.
Oh, geez, if you
when
were
it comes to
thin and
that.
you could eat rice on top of eggs and ground beef,
Oh,
I mean,
man,
you'd be totally.
and you're
set.
training in the gym.
Yeah, that
Right.
wouldn't
your
really be
man,
that
your
bad of a
response
diet,
to that is
you
going to
know?
be
You'd probably
massive.
be
Well-
yeah.
lower on the fat scale, but it'd be
Right.
fine.
Well, we got these people that are whole egg fans, and you got these people that are egg white fans, right? If you were to look at some of these things from a financial standpoint, if you ate whole eggs all the time that are the most expensive eggs you
Right.
can buy at the store, that's going to end up costing you a lot of money. There's not a point in time where egg whites became unhealthy. I think we need to make things very clear to people. Egg whites are not unhealthy. They just don't contain a lot of nutrition. Chicken breast is not unhealthy. Turkey is not unhealthy. It just doesn't contain a lot of nutrition. And those are all really important things.
Yeah.
And if people don't want to spend money on these grass-fed products and these higher-end meats that may have a better fat ratio in it for them, which may be more beneficial, their omega-3, omega-6 balance and all these different things, then you can simply purchase some omega-3 eggs. You could purchase some egg whites. When you have the opportunity to, get some salmon. When you have the opportunity to, get some grass-fed beef. But in between that, you can eat things that are a little bit leaner. Maybe you get chicken, or maybe you get turkey, or there's lots of options. There's elk, there's venison, the list of options goes on and on, even just leaner ground beef.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the fat that's in there, what type of fat it is. You don't have to worry about whether it's grass-fed because there's no
The
fat in
ground
there
beef
anyway.
at Costco is fairly lean. It's like 88%.
Yeah.
Which is pretty lean. It's 14
Yeah.
grams of fat
And you
per
can-
servings. It's like 30 grams of protein per serving. So it's
Right.
leaner than your normal 80% at Ralph's, and it's good. It tastes amazing.
And Costco is a great resource, even if you're not on a budget. It's just a great resource in terms
Yeah.
of if
you know what
say,
it is? I actually
you know-
never used to go to Costco because I never used
Yeah.
to eat that much of one thing.
But now,
And when I did, I was really fat. Before I went to Costco, I was really
Yeah.
fat. Now that I'm eating, a big thing that Mark and I talk about, and it goes back to what you just said about what you don't do. I just eat a lot less things. There's
Yeah.
a lot less on the menu,
well, and what you do eat is of pretty high quality. I mean, those meats at Costco are
Yeah,
pretty
they're
not
good,
too
yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
They're darn good. And you can get them at a very economical price point. And for someone who, I think, if you're helping somebody with their diet, or, somebody's watching what you do and they say, wow, I'd like to replicate what those guys are doing, they can do that even on a very, very modest income. It can be done. So,
Right.
those are some of the things that I think are so important to
Yeah, and
mention,
I've-
because you remove that barrier to entry. It's not just something like, oh, you can only do it if you're
And it's
at
not
this
just what Mark and I
echelon
are
of
doing.
economic.
It's look
Yeah.
at
Status, you know.
like the vertical diet's very similar.
Right.
Like all
Yeah.
stand stuff he gets at Costco, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be expensive, for you to do it. Sometimes it might get boring, but that's why we spice things up. Like
Right.
there's ways to spice things up. Mark just cooked up chicken breast that was pre-cooked, and he boiled up some bone broth on the stove
In the
and made like
pan.
a
Yeah.
soup. And he said it was amazing. It looked great.
It was like it's
Yeah.
ridiculous how good it is.
That sounds really civilized.
It's
I'd like to
super-
try
It's
that.
basically a
Super similar.
chicken,
Yeah.
chicken crime. It's like chicken
wow.
soup and chicken broth.
Yeah.
Well, because I
And
have because I am starting to lean towards a little bit more of a caloric restriction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of do it one meal at a time, so
Mhm.
almost per week. So I'll have like 2 or 3, maybe like 2 so far, small meals per
Yeah.
the 7 or 6 meals that I'm having. Maybe next week or the week after, there'll be a third meal in there that's small, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to line things up with conditioning myself for eating a little bit less, and just it's like 4.5 to 5 grams of chicken, per meal. Whereas when we started, we were at 10.
Yeah, and you keyed in on something that's very interesting now that makes me reflect on when we were doing squats the other day, which is you said, boy, could it be possible that the same principles and practices that we use in the gym, that we use in planning out what meals we're going to eat, not just later today, but tomorrow, the next day, could that be applied to other areas in life? Could those same principles of discipline, forethought, thrift, all of those things go into financial planning, relationship
they
planning,
can't.
business planning? And you're right. That was the answer. No, it couldn't possibly be done. But it brings up an interesting thing. And this is something that again, mentioning our colleague Ron Penna, we've talked about a lot, which is, bodybuilding, strength training, powerlifting, Olympic lifting have so many principles that if applied to other areas in life can be absolutely transformative. How do we have that conversation?
Yeah.
Right.
The-
How do
the
we
ultimate
how do we
example-
get into that? Right.
The ultimate example is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
He has done everything a human being could possibly do. He still walks around with a smile on his face, shaking hands and taking pictures in Gold's Gym. He's the man. And
I
he
think
always
people
will be.
admire like Jay Cutler for that reason.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
He's a great example.
He has successful businesses. He's very nice. He's fun. He's funny.
Yeah, you see, I mean,
He
you're always,
seems
"Hey,
a
how you
little.
doing?"
He seems a little vanilla, but you're not going to meet a high level bodybuilder that's not that way. He like kind of has to be that way.
Well, and
Yeah.
he's actually talked about that in some of
He can't have
some
a
of his
lot of flavor
interviews.
to
Like, what am I supposed to be
Yeah.
excited?
Yeah, he talked about that in some of his videos where he said, he almost became like a machine. Like his ability to do the same ostensibly boring thing every day was so profound
Yeah.
and such a determinant in his
Yeah.
success. I will eat these 6 meals a day. I will do this extremely rigorous training. I will do the tanning. I will do all the things it takes
You know what's great
to
is
be at this level.
I heard Pat Miletich, who's a friend, who's a fighter, had the Miletich fighting system, everything. And he just said when they interviewed him after like his first fight and he won, he's like, I don't know if I was that much better than the guy. I was able to shirk a lot of responsibilities off. I'm good at that. Like I can get rid of a lot of things in my life and focus in on the fight. And he actually attributes that a lot to why he was so good. I'm really like, I don't need trappings. Like I don't
Right.
need a nice house, a nice car. I don't need anything. All I need is a gym and a place to work out and some food. And that's
can
all
make
I
it.
need.
That extends so far into everything. Like
Because
I
he
don't,
was
Yeah.
able to not need anything. He was
Right.
able to fucking perform,
Right.
man. He killed everybody on the way up. Everybody.
Well, some people when they train, they don't need music. They don't need pre-workout. They don't need hype.
This is great.
They just-
Yeah.
on the
they
way to
just
his
get in the zone.
on the way to his first fight, guy pops in a Metallica tape, and it was cassette player. Miletich pops it out and throws it out the window, and the guy's like, "What the fuck did you do that for?" It was Metallica. He's like, "If you need heavy metal music to get fired up, you're toast already." And that's what he told the guy, and the guy was just like, "Okay," and they just drove in silence the rest of the way to the fight. And he was like very stoic like that. Like,
Yeah.
just like, okay.
But that goes back to the principle we touched on earlier, is a lot of success is attributed to what you're not doing, right? In this instance, what you're able to box out and
Yeah.
only focus on what's essential pursuant to your goal.
You detach
You know?
yourself from the ketchup that you think you need on your burger.
Right.
You remember when they
You
went
don't,
to
you don't
Russia?
Yes.
necessarily need it. Let's get rid of the word need. You don't need it.
Right.
You like it, and it's understandable.
Yeah.
but
Remember
you
they
don't
wand to
need
Russia
it.
in Rocky IV?
Yes.
What did he have there? Nothing.
Right. Well,
They
and
got
that
my
was
comics here.
Yeah.
They didn't even have all his comics.
Mhm.
They had nothing there. They just had a barn.
yeah.
And he
Well,
went
and
at it.
that was a great juxtaposition, right? You had, the Russian guy with all the scientists
And the steroids.
Yeah,
juice.
right. And he had a
They
little bit of
plunged a big needle into
little
his shoulder.
pharmacology to help him along there. But then you had Rocky, who was
I
in the
remember.
snow and climbing the mountain.
In
But there's something great
87,
about that.
In 87, when I came out, or 85, whenever it came out, I was like, when I saw that needle go into that Ivan Drago's arm, I was like, you cheater, man. I can't believe this, and that was what I really thought. So he put it over on me,
Yeah. Yeah.
So much easier to be negative, I think, is ultimately what we're facing a lot of times. It's so much easier to talk yourself out of the things that you try to make a commitment to. Starting on Monday, I'm going on a diet, right? And you're like, well, it's Friday, and then you just blitz yourself on Friday, Saturday, Sunday with drinks and all kinds of different things.
Commitments are the worst tactic. Like, if you want to get somebody to do something, so this is a sobriety tactic. It's called commitments, and we're only as good as the commitments we make, right? So when you go to AA, you make a commitment, and they're like, what's your commitment going to be? Like, now it sounds worthless, but like, dude, Chris Griffin, you're the coffee guy. Greg, you're the guy that brings the sugar. Mark, you bring the cream, and you're going to pass out flyers,
Yeah.
And everybody's got a commitment. You're like, what do you mean? And so you have to be at the meeting because you have a job now. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
To give yourself commitments. You give yourself things to do. You join groups, or you join, groups of lifting partners, and that's sort of what we have in the morning, right? So I don't need to show up at the gym at 5 a.m. right now, but we got a little club going. Like, while Mark's in
What though? It's
town,
very negative when somebody doesn't show up.
I didn't show up, and you guys were all like, I'm really disappointed. I'm like, well, we were interviewing Thomas DeLauer that day, and I didn't want to be tired to interview him. I couldn't get to bed till 1, and everybody was disappointed. I'm like, I'm not missing again then. I didn't know it was a big deal.
So apropos of that, I got a great story for you guys. So our colleague Heath Evans, who
Heath Evans, oh no.
I texted him the other day. I texted him that great photo that you took of me squatting with you behind me, and then O'Hearn looming in the background.
Yeah, it was
right?
awesome.
And I sent that to Heath, and I said, "Hey, man, we're missing you at these workouts.
Perfect.
Why don't you come tomorrow?
Picking up the spirits.
Right?" And he said, "Oh, dude, I'm in Florida." So I texted him back. I said, "So you're gonna make it, right?"
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
matter.
he sent me back like a thumbs up. But it was great because that's the type of I think support that this this sort of club that you.
I'll sometimes
mentioned
check in with
we
some
have.
of my guys and say, "Are you training?" And then the next morning they send me a picture at like 7 a.m. and
Yeah.
that's super training.
Greg does that to me.
Right.
He'll take a picture. He'll be walking down the street, and like, you just know that he's going. And like, sometimes, like the other day, I called him and said, I just want to let you know I'm proud of you. There's no other reason to call him.
Right.
I like what you're doing. Just keep going. And that's just because I think about it and go like, hey, I hope my guys are doing good. If we're going to encourage people, you don't encourage them and leave them off on the sidewalk. You encourage them, and you try to help them if you can. And that's what I do with a lot of people that I help with sobriety. Like, sometimes I'll just randomly check in with people to see how they're doing. Because usually when you throw somebody off, it actually helps them even more. Like, 'cause you're like, oh, that guy really cares. And like, I think it just means a lot. I think more of us need to show that we care about each other too.
Well, I was pressing on Andrew a little bit today. Like, he's already made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
But he talks about his stomach. His stomach bothers him here and there. And I'm like, I'm not going to say 100% that his stomach is 100% related to his diet. Maybe he just has gastrointestinal problems, period, right?
Yeah.
But he's mentioned to me many times that the more he's on his diet, the more those go away.
Yeah.
So let's not keep having this conversation about how your stomach's killing you.
Yeah. You keep saying it, but
Let's go all in. And he's been working out in the mornings and stuff, and he's making some changes to his body. It's like you're starting to see it, and it's like, well, let's go all in with that food. He's like, things have been different because of this week.
Yeah.
And he gets into a rhythm of saying that. Oh, he'll say, oh,
But what did we
off
now? We had a
off the
good
training.
conversation.
Yeah, it was all positive.
Yeah.
It was all positive. But like, hey, let's stop saying that. I haven't done that in a while because I haven't been in the gym for a minute. You're like, wait, we've said that 3 months ago.
I told him this. I said, you have two choices when you go away, right? If you go away and you haven't been away and had a vacation and been with your family in a long time, just go, okay, cool, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to just not worry about what I eat for a week. Or you're going to go on vacation and you're going to pack every single thing that you
Right.
need. You're going to think ahead. You're going to order stuff on Amazon. You're going to order all the snacks and prepackaged things that you can bring
Right.
along that make it easy to travel. Like, I know they're not
Yeah.
the most optimal things, but you're going to travel. Bring some Quest bars. Bring this. Bring that. They won't damage you. They won't insult you that bad, right? And that kind of thing. And just do one or the
Yeah.
other, but don't show up and fucking complain. Not to the Bell brothers. Not to me and him. Like, come on, like, don't, like, especially don't complain to me anymore after I had to take it from him, hearing like how pathetic I was all the
Another
time,
thing,
like, complaining.
another thing you can do when you travel is you can just figure out a way to like stabilize some things. Maybe about a year ago, I went to Canada with the family, and while we were there, I was like, well, I don't really want to carve out time to lift, so I'm not gonna mess with a bunch of lifting. And I'm not going to try to find gyms and stuff, but we were gone for like 8 days. So I was like, I'm going to work out once or twice with weights at some point, but I'm going to walk, and I'm going to walk a lot. And we just walked every day. The whole family walked every day. And then even when there was, even when we got back to the hotel and there was, just some downtime, I was like, I'm popping out and I'm going for a walk. I ate, not anything that I wanted. It wasn't like this gluttonous, long, week or whatever. But when I had an opportunity to eat something I wanted to eat, like a burrito or something that I just thought was going to taste really good, I just went in for it. But I was like, you know what, I'm going
It's
to
still weird to see
at
though.
least manage some of this with some other things.
As your brother, it's tough to handle when you're on vacation. You're eating like a piece of pizza. You're like,
Oh, I ate some cookie dough.
You're like,
What is amazing.
what is he doing to himself?
Yeah,
You know?
I don't even know if I'll get another cheat from here until the contest. That'll be tough. I don't really need a cheat, but it would be nice to have a day where I just eat a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just the thing. It's just like, oh man, I wish I could just even eat more steak.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's been tough for me. Like some days, like cutting back on food and eating once a day, it's been tough sometimes.
Do you do that every day?
No, because I think that if I do it like actually, it's kind of like
I
every
gotta
other
pee.
day.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, I think it's every other day because in talking to Thomas DeLauer and other people that are experts in like intermittent fasting, they say there's two kinds of intermittent fasting. There's intermittent every day, like you could do an 18-hour fast every day and eat for 6 hours, or eat for 8 hours, fast for 16 or whatever. It usually starts around 14, but really most people think it starts around 16. So I'd say 16 is probably your minimum, right? And I'll do 16 to 18 like twice a week.
Yeah.
And lately I've been doing lately I've been doing 18 like 3 days a week. About 18 3 days a week. And then the rest of the days I just eat kind of I don't eat all day. I kind of keep it in a window, but my problem is I have a hard time shutting down at night. So some of the days where I'm not intermittent fasting, I'll end up eating like a snack around like midnight or something some days. Like some days I'll eat really late, I'll just admitting. And I'm trying not to, but I'm up and I'm like, well, what's a hamburger gonna do right now? It's not gonna really do much, it's not gonna hurt me. And so I just eat it, and so I don't know. I actually want to try. I was thinking this week of doing some days of like eating a lot and then seeing the next day I could not eat at all and see how that works, just to try to test some things, Because like you said, some days you just wish you could eat, but other days you're not hungry at all. It's really strange.
Do you find on the days that you fast that there's any correspondence between that and say increased productivity or increased creativity? Have you noticed any?
It's so hard for me to
between the two?
fast that so I'm probably mentally abused by mentally destroyed in a way that I think about food still. And so when it comes to a day of not eating, I'm still weird about it.
Do you struggle
even
with
after
it?
all this time?
Like you're kind of watching the clock a little? Like,
well,
when's
I
this?
feel like, okay, so because I'm sober, maybe I should say too, like I feel like I have nothing to do. What am I going to do if I can't eat and I can't drink anything and I can't smoke anything and I can't
It's like
take
walk
any
or
pills?
go to sleep. It's like they don't seem like great
No,
options,
that's not
right?
good options.
Yeah, they seem shitty
I don't
compared
know.
to eating. Eating's fun.
Maybe if I had like a hot girlfriend or something, it'd be easier, but I gotta find that.
Hashtag goals.
Hashtag, yeah. Hashtag guys
I
got
think
nothing.
that food is really ruling people. That website ruled.me. Like
Yeah.
the guy nailed it.
Well,
with
that's
the
what I'm
name.
saying.
Yeah.
Name of that
that's-
website.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like I think I'm still mentally like a
Like
little
there's that
bit screwed
song,
up from-
"Cash rules everything around me." It's really the food
Well,
Yeah.
that's ruling everything.
Dr. Attia spoke to
Theme.
that point, right? He mentioned that, it's empowering to have this understanding that you don't require food, like that you can go for significant periods of time
Right.
without it. It builds, I guess, a confidence that's sort of a very interesting form of confidence, and he's pretty extreme. I mean, I would say a 7-day fast that's pretty extreme. I've done a 3.5 day fast, and it was extremely difficult for me.
Yeah, I've done a 3-day fast as well, and I like the challenge of it.
Yeah.
I also lost like about what did I lose? I want to say like day 1 I didn't lose much, but day 2 it just started to peel off, and I want to say I lost about 6 or 7 pounds.
Yeah, the water will go out if you're not taking salt.
Yeah.
The water will.
And I would say
go out.
net body weight loss once I got back to it was about a pound or 2. Which is
Okay.
still really good,
Yeah,
in
it's
that quick
significant.
period of time. Now,
Yeah.
again, it could have been just, I don't think I lost a pound of fat in 3 days necessarily, but it did help with just general weight loss. But I didn't like fasting. I didn't like doing a lot of fasting. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about the food. I did notice from a work perspective that I felt awesome. And I think that a lot of people, maybe not even so much fasted, but with light amounts of food, you hear that all the time. People are like, I just want, something. There's lunch menus at restaurants for this very reason. There's less food. They give you less food. They give you something that's not as savory as they might give you in the morning or at night, right? And it's so that you don't eat and then feel tired as
crash
shit.
out. Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but like when here was the problem for me with fasting. When I became unfasted, when I ate, it would still make me really tired, even though it was keto. And that might have been because I was like, oh, it's time to eat. And I engorged myself with food. So I tried to learn. I started to incorporate a fasting like snack. So I would still go to the designated amount of hours, the 16 hours.
Yeah.
But I might eat something small that's like 300 calories. And then another hour, 2 hours, I'd eat something else. And that seemed to help a lot.
Yeah.
It really helped a lot with how much I ate, and it also helped a lot with me feeling, that kind of dip.
I'd have to say, like lately, and maybe this is past 2 weeks, we've been getting up. We've been doing the 4 a.m. workouts and 5 a.m. workouts. It's really early, right? So when you wake up that early, it's harder for me to not eat. So I used to be like, I'd get out.
It's a longer eating window because you're up all day.
I would go to sleep at like 10 o'clock at night, and then I'd wake up at like 7 o'clock in the morning or something. I'd go to the gym. I get done at the gym by I'd be home by 10. Then we would work all day on our movie stuff, and then whatever 5 o'clock we're done or whatever, and then off to doing whatever else for the rest of the day. Yeah, and so it was just easier to the day's taken up. But when you come home and you have this big window between you come home and it's only 7 a.m. or 8 a.m.
Yeah.
You just feel like cooking at that time. You're like, well, I still have 2 hours before I meet with anybody or do anything really, So it's like, what do I do?
I ate 8 meals the other day because I was just up for a long ass time. Sometimes that's just the way it is.
It's just hard to fill in the spaces sometimes. We need something else other than eating. I don't know. Virtual reality? What do we need?
Conceively.
We need something something else.
Virtual eating.
Oh, virtual eating. Yeah, we just stuff our faces with fake food and then.
I think that's where we're at now with all the processed foods.
Yeah. And we're
virtual
doing
nutrition.
That.
Yeah.
Except for it's not virtual. It's actually doing damage.
Right.
You do it without doing damage. Well, cool, man.
You were saying that you eat once a day. What else do you eat other than meat?
What do I eat other than meat? That's it. Pretty much meat. Then some snacks. I have some chocolate every once in a while. Some dark chocolate that I like. I'm trying to think of what I normally eat. So on a regular everyday basis, if it's not cheating something that I'm eating, the only things I eat are red meat and then nuts and seeds. I would say pecans, macadamia nuts. There's our friend Gavin makes the pecan butter, Beardy Boys pecan butter. That's really good.
It's really good.
It's sweetened with a tablespoon of maple syrup in the whole jar. So by eating some pecan butter, that's not bad. Macadamia nuts are great. Peely nuts are great. And trying to think if there is any other stuff that I eat really maybe
eggs.
Eggs, avocado, bacon, coffee.
Cheese, but not really.
Not really cheese, because I find cheese,
Slows you down,
kills.
kinda.
I had a protein bar yesterday, and I literally farted the entire day. Remember that best protein bar ever or whatever? You know those best
Yeah, no, I'm
protein, best
familiar.
bar ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, best bar ever if you want to fart for 8 hours straight. Like the absolute best bar on the market for farting all day. And I've actually still have farts today from it. And nothing else on this diet has made me fart, not once. So that's why I think, like, stick to real food, eat real shit. Like, don't eat. The one time I go away from something they sell in Costco and I fart.
Devastating.
Devastating. It's going to blow up the world.
Some of what I'm doing right now is, I got the 350 grams of protein every day, the 65 to 70 grams of fat every day, and then 150 grams of carbs, which is, not a ton of carbs. People are like, you left us. You're not on the war on carbs anymore. But I haven't checked, but I might even.
That's
probably
lowish carbs, though.
I'm probably not in ketosis necessarily because I don't have enough fat in my system to even really produce
protein's
ketones.
so high.
The other thing
protein's so high.
The other thing I eat, I should mention this because I know it's not going to air today, but it's not actually National Ice Cream Day today, July, whatever today is. And I eat keto ice cream that I make, but it's made with butter, coconut oil,
We got to try some of
and
that.
eggs.
Yeah, I'm game.
And I
for
have
that.
some downstairs. Today I whipped some pecans into it. Yeah.
Hey now.
It's really good. I mean, it's something that's like,
Yeah.
that's pretty much a saturated fat frenzy right there.
Yeah.
Coconut
Yeah.
oil, butter, MCT oil, and eggs. All good stuff.
Tomorrow we got some training with O'Tren, Mike O'Hearn. He said 8 a.m. as you predicted, because he said that a lot of times when he's coming off
sleeping
of
in.
something
Yep.
that he's going to get a little extra snoozing in. And I think he said it's squats tomorrow, which is
Ooh, that's
we
gonna
already
be a challenge for us.
yeah we already
Oh,
trained.
we
Yeah.
toasted ourselves.
Yeah.
What the
But-
fuck is wrong with this? He must know. He must
Yeah,
know.
he must
He must have a spy on the inside.
All right, we got to go to sleep right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He must
Yeah,
have a
he
We got
spy on
to
the
eat and go to
inside.
sleep immediately.
Yeah, he was. I don't know. Maybe he didn't get some of his leg training in that
I don't
he
know.
wanted.
Maybe
when
this
he
is a
was
setup, and Daniel's part of it.
The conspiracy
Daniel's
theory.
the inside guy.
abounds.
Concrete shoes for Daniel.
I was just like, I told him I was, we were texting back and forth, and I was like, I trained legs like 2 days ago, but I'm in. Regardless, who cares? Figure it out. Get
I
some
haven't
good.
squatted with Michael Hearn in like 20 years. That'd be great. Let's do it.
What does he usually do?
It depends. Like a lot of
He
times
does a lot of similar things.
Yeah,
even though he switches it up.
it's not uncommon though to start on the rack with heavy squats,
Right.
singles, and then
Wow, singles?
yeah, and then progress from there to a press of some sort. And then sometimes there's variations on it. Like sometimes we'll do the yoke squats on the plate with their feet very close together. So it's a version of a sissy
He likes
squat.
that. Is that a hack squat machine?
Yeah,
That one?
you have the yoke that comes over your
Right.
over your traps. Those are extremely challenging. You don't need a lot of weight to get that done. And then some sort of variation on an extension and a curl.
So like maybe like 4 exercises or so.
Yeah, usually it's not anything like there's high volume.
Yeah,
but
I've
not
noticed,
a high number of different exercises.
I notice that every time we do anything, it's like the first exercise, like 10 sets of it.
Yeah.
Everybody just goes
Yeah.
and goes and goes. It never ends. And then
Well, because he warms up a lot.
Yeah, and those singles are part of the warm up. Like that's one of the
yeah,
things
that's okay. It's fun. I like
I've
it.
really
I just
learned from
never
him
know how many we're going to do.
is those oftentimes what you're doing is you're just loading your nervous system
Right.
and preparing it for the subsequent exercises.
Charles
That's a
Poliquin.
powerlifting technique too.
Yeah, Charles
Just, yeah.
Poliquin
Yeah.
told us that. And Charles Poliquin a long time ago just said, always warm up with the bar. It just shows you what the pathway of the bar. It's always going to give you a neurological response. So I've just always done that. I've never not warmed up with the bar. People always make fun of me too because I grab the bar, I warm up with it. I don't know. It's just what I've always done. Yeah.
Yeah, and
work.
Poliquin was the one to point out, and I don't know if the research has changed, and Charlie Francis was another one to point out the fact that when you had a lot of blood, let's say in your chest from doing like bench press, if you do a lot of reps on your way up, if you do 135 for 10 and 185 for 10 and 225 for 6, and then you go to do 275 for a few sets of 3, he said that's oftentimes where they saw the most amount of pec tears, the most amount of labral tears and tears in the rotator cuff and all kinds of things.
Labrum, yeah.
So basically, it was. Then they basically started to incorporate a lot of powerlifting stuff, where it's just like there's really not any reason to do like more than 1 to 3 reps and do multiple sets of that. And also too, it's a good gauge to see. It's a warm up,
Yeah.
and it's a tune up for the workout. You know, that's what you're trying to do. Is you are trying to get your body warm, but there's many different ways you can get your body warm. But it's really when you're talking about actually doing the exercise that you're going to engage in for the actual day, because we'll warm up the elbows, and that's
Right.
more of an actual warm up where we're doing all these other exercises for the elbow, but it's more of like a tune up. Like, all right, central nervous system, here we go. This is what we're doing today. This is the movement. And you get on board with that movement, and then you're able to stack on more weight as you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, peeps.
Let's do it.
On that note,
Let's go eat some
We're
it's
outta
ice
here.
cream time.
Strength is
Snack
never
time.
weakness. Weakness is never strength. See y'all later.
Keep it cheap.